So Michelle, did you get good feedback?
Do what?
I was asking if Michelle got good feedback from the video being posted in her group.
Michelle.
Yeah, I've gotten just really good feedback in general on these conversations that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
People are all fired up about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
good.
good.
I
That's
haven't
good.
seen or heard any of that, so that's good to know.
Yep.
I haven't heard anything either.
It's coming. It's like anything else. It takes time to.
Mm-hmm. Well, and for people to be like, okay, what is this? What are they doing? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is like a break for even me, man. I was like, I don't even care if anybody watches. This is awesome. Like,
It's
I was
just
having a
fun.
day
Yeah,
today,
it's
and I'm
fun.
like, I am so looking forward to this.
okay, guys, I think we are live.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, hey guys, welcome. You guys are in the So She Grows Mom community, and I'm so grateful for you that you're here in the middle of messy motherhood. As you can see, like I am literally in the mess of my motherhood. I wasn't going to show you all the squatty potty, but I just did. Anyways, so we, as I've mentioned before in the group, you guys, there is a group of me and some other mamas who have put together these conversations of moms in the middle to talk about motherhood and the messiness and all that goes with it, like raising kiddos, raising families, having marriages, trying to focus on yourself and all those things. And so you guys, I'm so excited to have everybody in here. So we are talking about the struggle of making mom friends. And before we get into that, I want everybody just like, I'm going to say everybody's name. Y'all can wave and everybody can kind of put a name to the face and see who we are and whatnot. So we have me, obviously y'all know me, So She Grows podcast. I'm the host and I'm your hype mom in here, always giving you the tough love. You guys are probably tired of hearing me all the time, but I love you. Okay, so Katie May, she is in the Marriage Empowered mama in here, and she is all like our go-to for marriage questions and all those things. So Katie, say hi. And then we have Michelle, Set It Free Sisterhood podcast. We have Ryan with the Wellness in the Word podcast. Katie Lynn with Stepping into a Joy-Filled podcast. Whoa, and somebody is frozen. Can y'all see? Okay, good. Okay, and then we have Katie Hedrick, and she is my Barndo twinsy right now. Like, and also, I like aspire to be you, girl, because you always come in here like fire on, like you're ready. I just always love you. So you guys, these are the mamas that are here today. Super excited. So let's get into this conversation about making mom friends because.
And Kristen, don't forget Kristen.
Oh, Kristen, girl, did I forget you?
That's
no
all right.
way. Girl, okay.
Hey.
Of course,
Twice,
of
so
course,
there's
the girl
two
having the
days.
rough day, man. And I had to go and make it worse. And then Kristen Chadwick in here, y'all, she has an amazing podcast too. Anyways, I feel like somebody's paused, which is why I'm getting caught off guard, but I think everybody's okay now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
I think so.
Okay. So as we're talking about making mom friends, I wanted to kind of open it up and ask you guys, like, has that always been the case for you that making mom friends is either easy or hard, or like, what has your guys' experiences been pre-kids? And do you feel like it's evolved? Do you feel like it's changed? Do you feel like it's gotten better? It's gotten challenging? Like, let's just start opening this conversation of like where we are kind of and where we've been, and then we can kind of go from there.
I'll jump in first, girls. Because as you were talking about this topic, I was just thinking back to when I first got married, actually, because I got married pretty young, I guess, in today's like standards. I met my husband, I was 19. He is 9 years older than me. So he was 28, I was 19. We got married when I was 20. And so all my girlfriends were still living up college life.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just going through this season of my friends, or who I thought were my friends, being really angry with me and feeling like I was being really distant with them as I was trying to step into that role of wife and what I thought a godly marriage should look like. I definitely did not have it all figured out back in those days, but I just remember them all being like angry with me, and like they would have get-togethers and not understand why I wouldn't just ditch my husband and jump in and join into these, get-togethers with them. And then same thing when I had started having babies, because I started having babies really young, younger than all my friends. Some of my friends weren't even married yet when we started having babies. And so I just remember kind of like feeling like I needed to break some ties. And that was hard. That was hard. I remember like mourning the loss of some friendships, because whether it was them breaking ties with me or me knowing that I needed to break some ties with them, that season was really hard for me. And so I just kind of wanted to bring some awareness to that, because for some of the young mamas out there, I would imagine that this is a pretty common thing for young moms, especially if you're the first in your friend group to start getting married or have babies. And there's this season of almost like mourning the loss of these friendships that that you have to let go of. And the same thing happens when we are on this personal growth journey in our life and in motherhood. Sometimes even years down the road in motherhood, there are friendships that we have to let go of, and it's hard, but it can be necessary.
I feel that so much, because I was in the same boat of we didn't get married early. We did things backwards. We had babies early, but like all of my friends were still in that college phase. And I felt guilty that I was like leaving them behind, and then also this kind of sadness of, because my group of friends, I've seen other friends who, you're the first to have the baby, and then they come alongside you and support you and stuff. And my group of friends just didn't know how to do that, or for whatever reason weren't there in that way. And so it was like this like catch 22 of being guilty of not being able to show up. Like they would text and be like, hey, we're going to dinner at 9. And I'm like, well, like, I'm laying my, my kiddo down. Like I can't, and, try to take a toddler to a dinner at 9. I mean, come on. And then, also them not coming in and, kind of transitioning with me. So it's like this really hard place to be in, of like, you want to be there, but you feel like you're outgrowing each other, and you feel like you're going in different directions. And it's a sticky situation for sure.
I'll speak to that too, just that young phase. I'll say my husband and I were super codependent on each other. So we had 0 friends when we got married, because most of our friends were in college, but we just didn't want to hang out with anybody other than each other. And so by the time kids came along, that ended up being such actually a beautiful twist of us praying together and asking for friends that could actually come alongside us and help us in our marriage. And that is one of the most abundant answers that we have ever received from the Lord, of just friends that were mentors. And then we were in a marriage group, and we've been in a marriage group since basically day one. And just that strong community that feels like it multiplies, which has its challenges too. But what I was piggybacking on was just that young place of marriage, of, kind of feeling like it's us. It's just us two, and that's all we need. And then we were like, wait, we need people. We need more than each other. So I just want to encourage those young couples that are, that's kind of been their motto of, we just need each other, that, oh man, there's so much more to be had in friendships. And it's so worth it for him to have friends, and for me to have friends to process and verbalize what I'm going through, that he can't necessarily be there as a friend, or as a woman friend. And I remember this one mentor, in that very early stage, she was like, guys just need time together to go get sweaty and bump up on each other and smack each other in the butt. And I was like, okay, so you're saying what? She was like, he needs to go play some sports with some dudes. And I was like, okay, deal. And he has, for the most part, most of our marriage, every Saturday morning, he goes and gets sweaty with a bunch of dudes. They play basketball for like 3 hours, and it's so good for his soul. And it really is a gift. So I'm just going to say that for right now.
Do you guys feel like you pre-kids, pre-marriage had a good social or like friendship circle? Do you feel like you guys had that kind of support, or like, where was everybody at in this group? Like for me, no, obviously no. I think I just shared that, but so I want to see like how that works out and plays into, because like for me going into motherhood, I struggle with that. I've like been on my hands and knees crying to my husband, like, where are my people? Like, God, like, where are they? And just struggling and wrestling with his silence in that and feeling like, Lord, like, don't you see me? Like, I'm showing up for these people. Where are they for me? So I'm curious if you guys were in the same spot of like, or if you had those circles established where in motherhood it was kind of a different thing of you guys just celebrating a season of even closeness, or what did that look like for you guys?
So
I don't think, go ahead, Katie.
no, go ahead, Ryan. You're good.
I feel like when I think of friendships, I think of like kind of two different periods of my life. And that's like being like a kid and a teenager and then now, because I almost feel like there's like this gap of like when I was just kind of on my own out there. And it kind of sounds like maybe that's how you guys are, but like I think of like my childhood friendships and my teenage friendships of like, and mostly like the girls that I've known from way back, like elementary school, that are still some of my dearest friends. And like, we're the friends who can like not talk for a year literally, and then just like hang out and, you know, pick right back up. So I feel like there's like probably 4 or 5 of those really good, close, like sister friends that I grew up with, you know, and whether it's like we're sharing just like surface level stuff or, you know, deeper stuff, like I just feel like that special connection with them. And I feel really lucky to have those friendships. And then I feel like just now, more recently, I've started creating this group of women who are like my sisters in Christ friends, you know? And for a long time, I feel like I just had like surfacey friendships, maybe through my 20s. And like I was isolated. And I think it was like self-isolation for a lot of reasons in my own personal life. And now I just feel really grateful that like I have these friendships that I have intentionally cultivated through church, you know, through the podcast, through just really desiring to create women, like have other women around me and have that community around me. Cause I feel like God's really spoke that into my life, the importance of community and not being alone. And also not just having the friends who like I can complain to and they're just going to be like, yeah, you know, pat me on the back and tell me like you deserve to feel that way. But like have the friendships rooted in God who are going to be like, we hear you, we see you here, we're praying for you, but like here's also some truth, like let me give you some love and pray for my marriage in the hard times and not just tell me like, hey, walk away, right? Because that's really easy to say. So I don't know if I'm even like answering this question right, but I think it's super important to have friendships who are for you, but who are going to be like just truth tellers and truth seekers and always point you back to God. Of course, this group of women does that for me and I'm so grateful. So I just want to encourage you that if you're a believer, to have that community who will pray for you. If you're not a believer, it's still so important to have community, right? And I just pray that you would see God in that. So that's what I had to say.
Katie, what were you going to say?
I was going to say my husband and so my husband is the extrovert out of us.
What? No way. I don't believe that.
What?
I know. Yes. So if you can imagine our friendship circle, I will be the one who will be like, I want to be alone and I can recharge. And like when we were first married, he would like assign me play dates when he would like go out and he'd be like, don't worry. His wife is going to come play with you. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm going to watch Netflix and be alone. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
No. We had a very close friendship circle. And we actually like cause I've grown up here my whole life. So I've got like friendships all the way from high school and I'm very blessed that way. But like, as we stepped into just being married and finding like-minded individuals, we actually found a few really close friends of ours from the church and then expanded out with their groups and their circles. we actually all kind of were like, hey, let's like have kids at the same time. How cool would that be? So we even just try to like be like the friend circle who, now we did the married thing, now we're going to do the kids thing.
That is
And it was awesome in theory, right? And but everybody had their own challenges in that, right? And also it really brought to light, I think like people have touched on this, but it brought to light to us some of our closest friends who we thought like were like with us in Christ. And I really want to speak to this because I think a lot of people turn away from the church because of experiences just like this, like, and community because of experiences like we've had. Is we had really close friends of ours that we actually had a big falling out over, and we really went back and forth on mourning this massive loss because they were so close. We were Christians, like what was going on was going wrong, you know? And when we really turned back to like evaluate, like looking back at ourselves when we made the friendship and looking back at and looking at ourselves now and all the changes that happened, you know, like it's really just a good thing to be aware of. People don't always stay the same, and what you know did align with you at one point may not align with you now, right? And it's important to understand that no one is perfect, even if they are, you know, claimed Christian or they are saying that they're following Jesus, right? Like we all fall short, we all sin. And I'm not trying to like get on a pulpit here, but that was really our experience. Was like we actually had a big falling out with some really meaningful friendships, and we had to reevaluate like what was important friendships, right? Like I'll talk to anybody. My friends make fun of me because I'll be like that person at the park who decides to just make a friend and start talking. But my circle is very tight. Like I'm very selective with like who actually knows me in a deep manner, and that is because like I want to make sure that they're positive, right? That they're going to pour into me, that I'm going to pour into them. This isn't a husband bitch session or, you know, let's just get together to complain. And early on in my motherhood too, I didn't adjust to being a mom well, with my first son, and I was a stay-at-home mom and had no idea what I was doing. And just grasped at like any friendship I could find at the gym, or, you know, would take their kids to the, you know, splash pad with me in 100-degree weather. And not all of those were productive, right? Like, and I think the biggest thing I had to learn was like, just because people are friendly and social doesn't mean that they are like the people you need to invest in, right? Or like make your friends. And that was a big lesson that my husband and I had to learn just in parenthood. But it is so important to have, like, so important. And like these ladies, if you guys are listening, for listeners, like just because your friends aren't like your next door neighbors, right? Like in today's day and age, there is a massive opportunity for community. You know, this just was totally God ordained.
Oh my God.
And so yes, don't just think it has to fit in a box either. Like be open to letting that friendship in as well.
Just to piggyback on what Katie May said, I think, and totally what I'm hearing from Katie May is just the importance of matching our values, that we have overlapping and similar values with the people that we're choosing to be friends with. I think is going to be really complementary.
So that gives me two questions then, because this is something that I've been wrestling with, this idea of pre-kids. We used to meet women and just look at them and evaluate them. And we did it. Like I say this in a good way, in a healthy way, but you're checking her out, right? Like this is the revolving door of mom Tinder friends, right? You're like, is she like my vibe? Is she, you know, like all these things, you're like checking all the things, right? To see if you guys can match in some way. But then now you add a layer of motherhood to it. And now you're watching her and evaluating her as a mom. Like, and I feel like I do that first before I evaluate her as a woman herself. So I wonder if that is more challenging for us now, when we try to make friends, because if we were to go to the park and have a mom date and, you know, our kids are present, then we're more likely to talk about like, you know, what are we dealing with our kiddos? What's going on? Like, oh my gosh, I'm sleep deprived. What do you do for this? He has a butt rash. Like, what cream do you use for that? Right. Like, but then if we were to take away all that and meet up with a mom over, you know, brunch or whatever, and it's just you and her, then it's a completely different experience. And so I'm curious, like, do you guys feel yourself in that same shoe? Like, how do you navigate? Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing that now we're trying to like go through the filter of like mom and then woman, or like, should we try to not focus on that and go back to who is she as a woman, who is she as a person? Like, what is y'all's thoughts?
Well, if it's okay, I want to share. I'll touch on that, but I don't have little kids right now, so y'all may definitely have a little bit more of that.
I love that. I love that you are in a different stage than us.
Yeah, it's really been fun listening too, because I also got married at 28. So I was in a different season there too. I was already, doing the adulting thing and had my own home and then met my husband. So, when I think about friends in general, I really do visualize them in seasons. And the seasons were, myself, marriage, and then, little kids, then school age kids. And then now where they're in the big kid category and teenager. And when I think about the types of friends too, and this may even go into that conversation, I've learned that I look at myself like I'm in the center of like this ring of people, and there's this one that's really close to me, and I really that's my core ladies, right? And then there's some out here. So I have like some really great, acquaintance friends or friends that like maybe it's work friends, things like that, where, hey, you would help each other out or, pick each other up for a ride, if you needed it. But then that core to me is really what we're talking about here. And for me, I think that is where it's a form of dating or a type of an interview when you are spending time with these women. Cause I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've met people that you do meet for the first time and they just, they spill it all out. And, for me, that's a red flag. So I'm like, wait a minute, you don't even know if I can handle this yet, but it is more of just taking the time to get to know them. But I can even tell you too, as Katie was talking earlier, I thought of a specific friend that we really had the things in common was our lifestyle. We drank a lot and we worked out a lot. And we spent a lot of time together for years. And when I changed, she didn't change. And so I went through that grieving process too. But now that I'm in this place now, I've cultivated 2 really dear, close women relationships. And it's just kind of been like, one I've never touched and met in person. She lives in Norway. Of course, I consider you ladies, especially a few of you that I'm already getting to know very closely, my friends. And then another one that's local. And we literally met through the kids in sports. But it was just kind of like, and we're opposites. So I guess sharing this, I want to say that sometimes if we look too much at their lives, we might miss people that we could really connect with if we're prejudging like, oh, well, she kind of is the same as me, or I see her doing the same things because my girl here, this my buddy, like if you were to profile us, you'd be like, why in the world do they hang out? Because it's not a day, but that's why we complement each other. So, I'm going to just end it here. When you are meeting new people, take the time, just like you would in any relationship, invite them to coffee, have conversation, and just slowly cultivate it. And then you'll know how far you need to go with, is she close? Am I able to be vulnerable with this person and really share? Or is this someone that, I enjoy being around, but we're going to keep her more out here? So
that is such great insight. And I love that you talked about that. You said one of your dearest local friends was it the parent of one of your kiddos' friends? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I have found that too. One of my dearest local friends, my little guy and her little guy became best friends. I didn't even know her before they met. And I think that locally, that is such a great way to meet to meet other mamas. Just like you said, Michelle, we are polar opposites. I'm actually an introvert, just like you, Katie Mae, and she's an extreme extrovert. Today, I'm sunburnt. We actually just came in from kayaking on the river today, her and I and both of our sons together. And Ashley, what you were talking about, I feel like as we grow in friendship, when Alicia and I hang out, we're the same, whether we're with our boys or not with our boys. And, you know, we've been friends now, like our friendship has grown over the years. And it's like, I feel like we're just who we are when we're together, whether our kids are with us or not. It's really grown into this beautiful, like, relationship where, again, like almost like opposites attract, like Michelle was talking about.
That's awesome. Do you
Yeah.
guys think that something that I struggle with as a friend, and y'all, like, I will admit this, I had a season in high school where I sat in the stall, like, and by myself ate my lunch. So I don't know if you guys can relate to that, if anybody watching the live or listening can relate to that, but there are seasons and some of us who just struggle. And like, I never had example of my mom cultivating friendships with other women growing up. She had my aunt and that was about it. And so I didn't understand that concept of how do you do that and how do they like grow so tight knit. And I was always kind of felt like I was on the outside of all these really tight knit groups and I couldn't ever find my way into them. And I think that I see so many mamas out there that are like, I try to approach her at the park. I try to, put myself out there and I just feel like I don't fit it's not reciprocated so what do you guys have advice for that? Have you have experience with that? Because I'll admit that there's been a time or two where I try to approach a mama on my kid's sports team or at the park and I'm like, hey, like, oh, so your kid must be the same age as mine. And they're just like, yeah. And then they like walk off and you're like, cool. Like, okay. Like you're just like, nice talking to you. So like, what is your guys' experiences with that? Because there are definitely some mamas who can relate to you guys having really close relationships and continuing to cultivate those today. But then there are some mamas who are listening or watching that are struggling in that area of like, what, how do I continue on this process of putting myself out there and I can't find my people?
I want to ask you, just kind of on that piggyback question too, is did any of you find that the difficulties or struggles, if you had any, like when it comes to like your own relationships and friendships, mirrored that same difficulty within your marriage? Because I asked because I found that like with like, so the more like healing and self-awareness I did, right? Like I found that like a huge issue between my husband and I's relationship was my expectations of him, right? Like I give so much of myself, therefore he's never giving enough of him. And I found that actually when I looked at it, I also found that in my own friendships, right? Like I just kind of felt like, I was let down a lot by my friends. But in all reality, I just had these expectations, right? So I don't know if that can shed some light on a few things. Typically, and what I find even with my clients, you'll find that like if you're struggling in this area with relationship or in your marriage, it's just so right in your face so you can see it, but you actually will find that that's going to spread outward and affect that same way, right, throughout your friendships as well.
Free coaching session, y'all. I'm like,
yeah. Well, I mean, one thing is asking yourself, what is it that I'm looking for out of a relationship? When you're approaching this woman at the park or whatever, like really defining what it is that you have time for and that you want in your life. Because then that's going to help you realize, okay, well, how much time am I willing to spend on getting to know someone? Because it takes time, just like it did with our spouses. It wasn't just great and comfortable and all the great conversation the first time or two. Yep. And then really that does go back to that's where the coaching comes in, the thought work of like, if that mother responded that way, or if it's kind of awkward, asking yourself, so what am I making this mean? It could be something going on with her. Like they could have had just like a diaper crisis, or, she got an emergency phone call, or just she's stressed out, or she's awkward and she's like, I don't know how to talk to this lady. I want to. So really just making those choices ahead of time on how much effort you're going to put.
Yes, I think 100%. Like as I'm looking back at all those struggles for myself personally, is this expectation, like Katie Mae was saying, or this ideal in my own head, whether it was from somebody else's post I saw on social media or whatever I thought and made up in my mind of what friendships had to look like, to where I wasn't realizing that I had friendships right in front of my nose. It just didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. Like it wasn't us having adult mom sleepovers or like, brunching every other weekend or whatever. It was like us being acquaintances and maybe catching up here and there or being there for each other, randomly here and there and, whatever. Like, so I think that's kind of what I was getting to was sometimes we think friendship is or has to be a certain thing, which I think we talked about a little bit earlier as well, of like in this box. And like sometimes that makes us miss out on like the greatest, even smallest of friendships that can be so beautiful and so meaningful. And yeah, like I just don't want us to miss out on that because we think it has to be a certain way. I don't know.
And sometimes people just aren't your people.
Yeah.
And like you're trying to make them your people. Because I've
Mm-hmm.
had that experience where like I was, part of a group, but I never really felt like I was part of the group. And I was always like trying to like I was nervous to hang out with them, or I was trying to appear in a certain way. And like, even when I was going through things, they weren't really there for me. And that said a lot, right? But I was still like trying to make them, I was still trying to fit in. And it's like, I was a little bit resentful and just hurt by it for a while of like, well, you think that they would check on me or, but it was just like clear that they probably just weren't my people. And I was trying to make them my people for whatever reason. And like, that's totally okay. You don't have to fit into every group because there will always be another friend or another group of friends who really actually care about you and who you don't have to try to be someone that you're not.
Mm-hmm. How has God worked on y'all like throughout your, year after year through your friendships? How do you think he's changed your either perspective of friendships, your how you're viewing them, cultivating them? Like, how do you think that that's changed over the years?
I think for me, it's about kind of what Katie was saying earlier, like that we're all going to evolve, and maybe every friendship doesn't go along with you on that evolving journey, and then some will always be your friends. Like I feel like there's just friends who will always be part of my life, right? Whether they're like an active part of my life or not. But I think one big revelation for me is that like I don't have to be the same person that I always was. Like even if it's awkward for some people, that like now I'm just like in love with Jesus and that's what I want to talk about and that's who I want to be, and I don't want to sit and gossip with you, right? Like I can still stand in who I am today and still be a good friend to them. And I've always been kind of like that kind of counselor for my friends, and I've always been fine with that. Like I just naturally am the person who like people will come and give me all their stuff, tell me how they're doing, and not ask how I am, which is like I'm totally good with. Like it does not bother me at all. And just I think being the light in the world when it's like everyone is in chaos all the time, and we can kind of be that light for our friends who maybe don't have that close relationship with Jesus. And how cool is it that you can kind of be that person for people, right? Like no matter the chaos that's going on in your own life, to have that personal relationship with God and just let that be reflected in your own friendships and relationships. So I think he's worked on me in so many ways, and just knowing that you can love people no matter what season they're in, no matter what season you are in. And there's always room for more. I was just reading something like, who was it from? I wish I could remember. I don't even think it's like a Christian thing, but it's like make horseshoes, not circles, because there can always be room for more. And I just love that.
Mm-hmm. You can always sit with us.
Yes. We don't want to be the mean girls anymore, right?
No.
I feel like for me that God has just revealed to me what a gift friendship is. After we got married and I talked about, it was almost like, I don't know, at that point it was like my husband and I, and like my friend circle was pretty much gone, as I had known it, and just kind of jumped into the whole marriage thing, babies thing. And so the industry that he worked in, that we then worked in together, was the commercial roof coating industry, which is totally a man's world. And so for like 12 or 13 years, I was just in this man's world. And I don't know, that's all I knew. And then within the last probably like 3 years, it's like God started showing me what I was missing. And so as I stepped forward in obedience, honestly, for me, it was in launching the podcast and pursuing life coaching certification and just like opening up my heart, putting myself out there, stepping forward in obedience. God has opened the doors to so many new relationships and friendships with the most amazing women as a direct result, as a gift of blessing, as I've stepped forward in obedience. And that has just been the coolest thing. And my heart just like overflows with gratitude for all these women that I've got to meet, which again has just been a result of stepping forward in obedience. I feel like friendship truly is such a gift from God.
Yeah. I think for me personally, like you guys were saying, all the, having expectations and looking for friendships and looking for these things in these other women. I think for me, looking back, which it was a struggle and it was hard because I could see all these other women cultivating all these friendships and all these things happening, which, when you don't have it, it's like magnified in your face, right? So you feel like you're the only one and like, why me, God, like what is going on? But I look back and I'm like, you know what? The lack of, or where I felt like there wasn't any, it was for him being like, hey sister, like girl, you need to work on yourself. Like you can't give somebody what you don't have. Like you can't show up to be a friend for them and expect them to be this friend that you want in your mind, because you're not ready. Like you're not ready. You're not there. And so like when I look back, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I get it. Like it was rough, but it gave me the opportunity to work on myself, to learn what my voice is, who I am, and then also be content with who I am and what I have and what God's gifted me, because I was so focused, I was so hyper focused on this one thing that I was lacking, that I was missing out on, this relationship of friendship that I had with my husband, this, like all these other things. And so sometimes I feel like we can get in that space where we're so focused on, social media because all these girls are posting all these things and, or whatever. But like Katie Mae was saying, maybe there isn't a relationship there or friendship circles there because there's something else going on deeper. And I feel like for me, that was the case of like, hey, you have to learn how to be a friend because you don't know how, like, and I feel like that's okay to say. And I feel like that's okay to be in that space and to take a step back and be like, okay, I know my time is coming. I know he has those people for me. I know, like, and just trusting and believing and having that faith, because if this is an example enough, this group of me reaching out to Ryan and then being like, hey, do you want to get on this podcast, like, and do these talks together? And she was like, hey, I know somebody. And then like, it turned into, hey, I know somebody. Right. And then like, now we have this cool, awesome group of 6 women who I've never met in person. Have any of us met in person? I don't even know.
Ryan and I have.
Oh, cheaters. It's not fair.
Right.
But yeah, and different seasons of life, different places in the world, and just so how amazing it is when you wait and trust and have faith in the Lord that he will provide. And then that way, and also being in a season of like, hey, I want to be able to show up in and as my best self. Do y'all have any last words? I wanted to ask you guys too before we end, of like, what is your most embarrassing mom moment trying to make a friend? Because we've all done it.
I just want to say something and then I'll answer that.
Yes.
But I love that it's been touched on that we all want a sense of belonging. We all want to be seen and we all want to be heard and known. And I think the bravery comes out when you do try and you do put yourself out there in a healthy way. And then it continues to grow and grow and grow. And some of my strongest friendships as a mom started because of doing just mom life together when I had 4 under 4. And it was like, I don't know who I am. I can barely like get 3 diapers done in 1 minute. Like, and it was women coming in and out of my house and being like, I can't go anywhere, but you can come here and this is my mess. And yes, I have a wild child that I don't know how to control. And hello, like I don't know how to do life right now. And those are some of my strongest friends because it started with, this is real life. And like the poo has hit the fan. And if you want to come in, awesome. And some of my best friends, even now, were the ones that stepped in to that season of life with their mess too. And we both saw each other in whatever capacity we could see each other. And then it grew and it grew and it grew because we were in those friendships invested to the core of who we were. Like what you were saying at the very beginning of like, do you look at them as a mom first and then a woman? But actually in those friendships, I feel like I saw them as moms and us just doing life side by side. And then it's evolved into such a broader picture of like, you know, walking through really hard marriage stuff and walking through child diagnoses and surgeries and, you know, all of these things. And that's such a gift that we can have that opportunity to be brave and invite someone into that space and and just evolve into those places. All right, so here's my funny story. So some of you know my story about when I was young mom, I basically was like, come to Jesus moment of, I hope this is real, this whole Jesus thing. And at that point, it was like, what is the Holy Spirit? I've never really like actually talked about the Holy Spirit. I want to know more. And so this lady was at a Bible study, gave a talk, no joke, like within the next couple of weeks on who is the Holy Spirit. And she was the same age as me. And she got off the stage, like beautiful, beautiful woman, super intimidating. Like she was an old Roxy model for, you know, Roxy, the brand. Anyway, so she comes off the stage and I like pull her in the back of the room. I was like, I need you. And she was like, yes. And I was like, I really need you to be my friend. And she was like, okay. And I was like, can we go to coffee like tomorrow? And she was like, sure, why not? And so that was definitely the most embarrassing, like, yes, I need you and you are my friend from here on out. And she's one of my closest friends now. So
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Funny.
I love that you said that though. I wanted to go back real quick and I know we're running out of time, but like of this idea of like, just let them in. Like, I think that is another thing that sometimes we don't see as these walls that we put up of like not, or assuming a certain thing and not giving them the opportunity to make their own choice. Like my house is messy, so I won't invite them over. Well, you took away that choice for them. So now they can't step into your life or, you know, or all these other things of like, well, she won't like this, so I just won't text her. Or maybe, you know, or she didn't text me back. So, she probably doesn't like me. So then you're taking away her opportunity, right? Because maybe life got her caught up and then you didn't reach out like you should have. So you didn't give her the opportunity to be available, you know, when she was or whatever. And so, yeah, I really love that you mentioned that, Kristen, of like, just let people in, like, let them into the middle of your messy motherhood. And then sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I don't have an embarrassing, I couldn't think of anything, but I will highlight what you just said, because I hear this a lot about the whole not letting people come over to your house. Like, listen, if you really want real friends, then you need to show them your real dirt, your real dog hair, and your real clutter. Because, I mean, because really,
your poop flooded RV and all? Yeah.
Yes. Are we not presenting ourselves to be fake if it's always put together? Because that's not real. So I just want to publicly clear the air and say, listen, you know, we all say that we want, well, I need to tidy up or whatever. Well, you're missing out on life, because when you get older, do you want to look back and say, wow, my house sure did stay clean? Or do you want to look back and say, I had awesome relationships with a messy, cluttered house, and it was great. So
you go off, Michelle. I love that.
So good. Preach. That's it. Close it out. That's it. Spot on, girl. That was
I
so
don't know.
good.
You have laundry in your baskets and on your couch right now. I do.
Or boxes and squatty potties. I mean, Yeah, I don't know if I have an embarrassing moment. I mean, I feel like literally every moment of me trying to make friends is embarrassing. Reaching out to Ryan, who hardly knew me, was embarrassing. I was like, I don't know this girl, but I literally felt it in my bones to be like reach out to her, and I was like, I'm gonna go for it, whatever. At this point, I'm like 30 something, and I have no filter. I don't care. Like, come over into my poop filled RV. Like, this is just how it is, right? So, I think,
And I'm so glad you did. Look what we have now. This is so fun and so awesome. And I don't know who said it earlier, but how important it is. Like, it doesn't matter if you can physically get together, because like each of you have been there for me and like know things about me, like my closest friends do. And it's just so awesome to have women who truly care about you. And I think everyone is searching for that in their lives, right? And maybe a lot of people have already found their people, but there are people out there for you and for who need friendships too, and love and prayers and all the things. So I just love that we have this, and we have a horseshoe, so anyone else is welcome.
welcome to my horseshoe.
That's good.
All right, ladies, thank you guys for hopping into the group, hopping on and talking about making mom friends in the messy middle. It is definitely hard. And I want to just say, and if you guys have anything else to say, like, to these mamas listening and watching, like, we see you, sister. Like, we know that it's hard. It's not easy. You're sometimes stuck in the season of like taking care of all the little people, and there's not a lot of time for going out there and mingling and finding and talking without running across the playground trying to get somebody from jumping from a platform or off a slide or whatever, right? So we know that can be you. We know that, like, and I just want to remind you that is what it is. Like, that is a season, and it will have an ending, and a new beginning will come. And you guys, like Michelle was saying, like everybody else was saying, like Kristen was saying, let people in, let people see what you're about, see your life, your true self, and invite them in, because if you don't give them the opportunity, then you'll never know. And if they don't, then okay, oh well, move on. Like, it's like a revolving door of mom Tinder. We just got to keep swiping, right? Like, until we find the right match. So with that being said, y'all have anything else you want to add? I don't know. I think we covered a lot. All right. So I am so glad you guys listen in, and I hope you guys tune into next week when we hop in another Facebook group of ours and do another recording on another topic that is going to be awesome and honest and brutally good and good for your soul, filled with tough love, I'm sure. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening in, and we will catch you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.